There's a 23-foot canal running through the Willowbrook Estates HOA common area right now. I dug it. And before you ask, yes, it's completely legal. See, most people hear HOA and they think of petty fines. Maybe a nasty letter about your grass being half an inch too tall, or someone complaining about your Christmas lights staying up until February. But what happened to me? What the Willowbrook Estates Homeowners Association did to my family, that wasn't petty. That was war. I'm going to tell you how a 62-year-old retired marine engineer ended up operating heavy machinery at 2 in the morning, while HOA board members watched from their porches in their bathrobes, powerless to stop me. But here's what you need to understand first. I never wanted this fight. I moved to Willowbrook Estates in Clermont, Florida in March of 2019. My wife Linda and I had spent 31 years dreaming about this. A lakefront home, a private dock, and a boat ramp, my boat ramp, that would let me take my 24-foot fishing boat out onto Lake Louisa whenever I wanted. That boat ramp was the reason I bought that specific lot. It was in my deed. It was in the HOA documents. It was in the original community plat from 1987. But what I didn't know, what the realtor conveniently forgot to mention, was that the HOA board president, a woman named Dolores Hensley, had been trying to eliminate that boat ramp for 11 years, and she just found her target. 6 weeks after I moved in, I got my first violation notice. Unauthorized dock modification. I hadn't modified anything, but I had no idea what was coming next. Over the next 4 months, I received 17 violation notices. Unauthorized dock modification, improper vessel storage, aesthetic incompatibility with community standards, unapproved paint color on my boat lift. My boat lift was gray, the same gray as the 3 other boat lifts on my street, but apparently my gray was the wrong shade. I tried to handle this the right way. I attended the August board meeting, signed in, waited my turn, and when Dolores finally acknowledged me 3 hours into the meeting, I stood up and calmly explained my situation. I showed them my deed. I showed them the original plat. I showed them the HOA's own governing documents from 1987 that explicitly guaranteed boat ramp access to all lakefront property owners. I had the receipts. You want to know what Dolores said? She adjusted her reading glasses, looked down at my documents and said, "Mr. Hartwell, the board appreciates your enthusiasm for historical documents, but the 2014 amendment to our CC and Articus supersedes all previous agreements regarding water access." 2014 amendment. I never signed any amendment. I wasn't even a resident in 2014. I was living in Michigan, so I asked politely for a copy of this amendment and for signatures proving homeowner approval. Dolores's face went pale. That's when I knew something was very, very wrong. Over the next 2 weeks, I filed 3 formal records requests with the HOA management company. Request 1, denied. Proprietary information. Request 2, denied. Board executive session materials. Request 3, they stopped responding altogether, so I did what any reasonable person would do. I hired a lawyer. Her name was Patricia Vance. 30 years of HOA litigation experience. And when she saw my case, she said something I'll never forget. "Marcus, I've seen boards bend rules before, but this..." She tapped the stack of violation notices. "This isn't rule bending, this is targeting, and I think I know why." Patricia had found something buried in the county records. In 2016, Dolores Hensley had voted to approve a lakefront development project. The developer, her brother-in-law's construction company, but the project had one major obstacle. My boat ramp, the only public access boat ramp in the community, sat directly in the path of the proposed expansion. If they could eliminate boat ramp access and force out the lakefront property owners who used it most, they could sell the land, rezone it, and build 12 luxury waterfront condos worth an estimated $4.2 million. I wasn't being harassed because I broke any rules. I was being harassed because I was in the way. And that's when everything changed. The Petersons were the first to go. Bill and Martha Peterson, married 53 years. He'd built model ships in his garage. She grew tomatoes in her backyard that she'd bring over to Linda every Sunday. They'd lived in Willowbrook for 22 years. But after 9 months of violation notices, legal fees, and a $23,000 lien for landscaping violations, they couldn't take it anymore. Martha cried when she hugged Linda goodbye. She said, "I'm sorry we couldn't fight with you, Marcus. We're too old for this." The Delgados left 2 months later. Then the Nuyens. Then the Williamson family, 3 kids, one with special needs, 7 families, exposed to the same campaign of harassment, all lakefront properties, all with boat ramp access in their original deeds, all in the way. By January of 2021, I'd spent $67,000 in legal fees. $67,000. My retirement savings were bleeding out. Linda couldn't sleep. She'd wake up at 3 a.m. just staring at the ceiling. One night she grabbed my hand and whispered, "Maybe we should just sell, Marcus. Maybe it's not worth it." I looked at her and I said, "They want us to give up. That's their whole strategy, make it so painful, so expensive, so exhausting that we just surrender." I squeezed her hand. I didn't spend 30 years in the Navy to run from a fight. But here's the thing about fighting an HOA. They have your money. They're using your dues to fund their lawyers. Every month, I wrote a check for $475 in HOA fees, and every month that money went straight into a legal fund designed to destroy me. I was financing my own persecution. And then the final blow. March 15, 2021, the HOA filed a $142,000 lien against my property. $142,000 for accumulated violations, legal fees, and community restoration costs. Community restoration costs. I hadn't restored anything. I hadn't damaged anything. I'd done nothing except exist on property they wanted. My lawyer Patricia called me that afternoon. "Marcus, with this lien they can force a sale. Florida law allows HOAs to foreclose for unpaid assessments if this goes through." She didn't finish the sentence. She didn't have to. That night I stood on my dock. The dock I'd dreamed about for 31 years. The water was calm. Orange and pink streaked across the sky. And I thought, this is it. This is how I lose everything. I was running out of options. I couldn't sleep that night, so I did what I'd been doing for months. I researched Florida HOA law, property easements, historical land grants, anything that might give me leverage. At 3:47 in the morning, I found something. Not in the HOA documents, not in the county records, but in the Army Corps of Engineers historical database. Willowbrook Estates wasn't always a retirement community. During World War II, this land was part of a military logistics network. Supply boats would transport materials from Lake Louisa to training facilities inland. And to do that, they needed a navigable waterway. In 1943, the Army Corps of Engineers established a permanent navigable waterway easement running from the public waters of Lake Louisa directly through what is now Willowbrook Estates common ground and terminating at my property line. An easement that had never been extinguished. When the land was developed in the 1980s, nobody bothered to check the federal easement records. The HOA was formed, houses were built, common grounds were landscaped, but that easement, that navigable waterway right, it still existed, hidden in plain sight for 80 years. According to federal maritime law, any property owner with riparian rights connected to a navigable waterway easement has the legal right to maintain and restore that waterway. Maintain and restore. I called Patricia at 7 a.m. "Patricia, I found something. I need you to verify this immediately." 2 weeks later, she called back. "Marcus, it's legitimate. The easement is valid. And under federal maritime jurisdiction, the HOA has no authority to obstruct it. In fact, if the waterway once existed and has been blocked, you have the right to restore navigability." Do you understand what that meant? The HOA had built their precious common grounds, their walking paths, their decorative landscaping, their little gazebo where Dolores held her wine socials, directly on top of a federal waterway easement, and I had the legal right to dig it back open. Now, I had exactly what I needed, but I didn't rush. Rushing is how you make mistakes. Rushing is how HOAs win. I was going to do this perfectly. Step 1, verification. I hired a surveyor to map the exact boundaries of the 1943 easement. I hired a maritime attorney to confirm my federal restoration rights. I hired a hydrological engineer to determine the proper water flow path. Total cost, $14,000. Worth every penny. Step 2, documentation. I installed security cameras covering every inch of my property. I recorded every interaction. I saved every email, every letter, every text message. If Dolores wanted to play legal games, I was going to have receipts. Step 3. Permits. Here's what most people don't understand about federal easements. The HOA had no jurisdiction. The county had limited jurisdiction. The only authority that could approve or deny my restoration project was the Army Corps of Engineers. On September 3, 2021, I received my permit. I held that piece of paper in my hands. Linda stood beside me, and for the first time in 2.5 years, I felt hope. But I wasn't done. Step 4. Notification. I sent certified letters to every member of the HOA board. I sent notice to the HOA management company. I sent copies to the county, the state, and the Army Corps of Engineers. I informed them that in accordance with federal maritime law and my approved restoration permit, I would be commencing waterway restoration activities on September 15, 2021, and I gave them 10 days to respond. Oh, they responded. Dolores left 17 voicemails in 3 days. The HOA lawyer sent cease and desist letters. Board members showed up at my door at 9 p.m. demanding I reconsider my hostile actions. I smiled politely, closed the door, and started organizing my equipment. I rented a CAT 303 5 mini excavator, 3,500 pounds, perfect for precision digging. Linda asked me if I was scared. I told her scared, no, I'm ready. September 14, 2021, the night before, I didn't sleep. I sat on my dock and watched the moon rise over Lake Louisa. Somewhere across the water in one of those fancy houses, Dolores was probably doing the same thing, wondering if I'd really do it. 5:47 a.m. September 15, 2021. I started the excavator. It was time to end this. The first cut was the deepest, both literally and symbolically. I worked for 14 hours that first day. My arms ached. My back screamed, but I didn't stop. Neighbors gathered. Some came to yell, some came to watch. A few, the ones Dolores had tormented like me, came to cheer. Old Tom Hendricks, who'd lived in Willowbrook since 1992, set up a lawn chair at the edge of my property line. He sat there all day, drinking coffee, watching me work. When I finally took a break around noon, he walked over and said, "You're doing what the rest of us were too scared to do, Marcus. Don't you dare stop." I didn't. Dolores called the police 3 times. The first officer reviewed my permit, made a phone call, and told her, "Ma'am, this is a federal matter. There's nothing we can do." The second officer said the same thing. The third officer didn't even get out of his car. Dolores threatened to sue. She threatened to have me arrested. She threatened to make my life a living hell. I just kept digging. By day 3, the canal was 12 feet wide and 4 feet deep. By day 5, I hit the old waterway bed, still visible after 80 years. The Army Corps engineers from 1943 had laid stone channel markers. They were still there, buried under decades of filled dirt and landscaping. I sat in that excavator and stared at those stones. Men who'd been dead for decades had left behind proof that I was right, proof that this waterway had always existed. On day 7, the water came. Lake Louisa, connected to my property through 23 feet of restored navigable waterway. I put my boat in that canal the same afternoon, floated right past Dolores's property. She was standing on her porch, watching, helpless. I raised my coffee cup to her. Didn't say a word, didn't have to. The aftermath was satisfying. The HOA sued me. I countersued. When the case went before Judge Catherine Morrison in Lake County Circuit Court, she reviewed 3 years of evidence. She found that the HOA had engaged in systematic harassment, fraudulent lien filing, conspiracy to deprive riparian rights, and abuse of HOA governing authority. The $142,000 lien against my property, voided. My $67,000 in legal fees, ordered repaid by the HOA, with interest, and Dolores Hensley, removed from the board, permanently banned from holding any HOA position in Florida, and personally liable for $89,000 in damages payable to me. Her brother-in-law's development project, dead. The county revoked the zoning approval when they discovered the undisclosed federal easement that the HOA had hidden during the application process. Today, that canal is used by 14 families in Willowbrook Estates, families who'd been bullied, families who'd been threatened, families who'd been told their property rights didn't matter. They matter now. We erected a sign at the entrance. Willowbrook Waterway, established 2021. Underneath, in smaller letters, rights don't expire, justice doesn't surrender, neither do we. Linda and I still sit on that dock every evening. We watch the sun set over Lake Louisa. We listen to the water move through our canal. And sometimes when the light is just right, I swear I can see Tom Hendricks sitting in his lawn chair across the water. He passed away last spring, but he saw the canal finished. He took his boat through it one last time. He said it was the best day he'd had in 20 years. So here's what I want you to take from this story. HOAs are not invincible. Board members who abuse their power can be stopped. And sometimes the system actually works. But only if you're willing to fight, only if you refuse to surrender, only if you're willing to dig a canal through their lies to find the truth on the other side. My name is Marcus Hartwell. I'm 64 years old. I'm a retired marine engineer from Clermont, Florida, and nobody blocks my boat ramp. If this story meant something to you, if you've ever felt powerless against someone who thought they could push you around, then you understand why I share these stories. Because somewhere out there, someone is sitting in their kitchen right now, staring at a violation notice, wondering if they should just give up. Don't. Hit that subscribe button, turn on notifications, and come back every week. Because these stories, they're not just entertainment, they're proof that standing up works. Leave a comment below. Tell me about your HOA. Tell me about your fight. And if you know someone who needs to hear this, share it with them. We win together, or we don't win at all. I'll see you in the next one.